Hey everybody, I'm Tim and this is Cigar Terms Explained, the parts of a cigar edition. You're watching Cigars Daily. Hey, get a whole lot more out of this and all our videos when you join the community on Cigars Daily Plus and when you watch on Rumble. Ah, yes, anatomy. One of the wonderful parts of the experience on this world. There's anatomy for all kinds of things, from trees and plants all the way to humans. I'm sure all of you remember that video we got to see in middle school that very graphically showed a woman giving birth. Well, this video is going to be sort of like that, except it won't be a traumatizing experience that none of us can unsee. Today, I want to take you inside some cigar terms that explain the anatomy and different parts of a cigar. For the aficionado who's just getting into the cigar world, it's the opportunity to learn the little names of the bobbles and weevils and parts of a cigar that make it what it is and are integral to the experience of a cigar. So some of this is even helpful to figuring out where you get the most out of a cigar. I'm going to take you through everything about this cigar right here. This is Oliva's La Fermentada, and I'm using this as an example today because, well, it has all the parts that a good cigar should have. And I want to ask you, if you're curious about specific cigar terms, put them in the comments below, because this is a series of videos that I intend to continue making. This one will really center around all the parts of a cigar, but there's so much to the cigar vocabulary. There's so many different things to know. Some of it is simple, like what you're going to hear about in this video, and other parts of it are a fun and confusing mix of English and Spanish together that are an impossible web of words that no one will ever fully understand. But if you follow along with this series, you should get a good notion of how to speak cigar lingo. And with no further ado, let's jump right in. When it comes to the insides and outsides of a premium cigar, it's a pretty simple thing, but there's actually two ways to understand this, and we're going to dice it up both of those ways. One of those ways is from the inside to the outside, and one of them is from sort of the bottom and to the top. And so let's go ahead and start there. For the people just getting into cigars, the things you need to know about is from this bottom to top, lengthwise across the cigar, what the different parts are called. So we're going to start here at the top. This is the mouth part of the cigar. It's the first thing that people screw up when they get into cigars, so it seems like a rational place to start. And that's on the part we call the cap. You see, a premium cigar is only made out of one thing, and that's leaf. That's it. It's all leaf, all the way up and down, all the way in and out, all the way up to the cap where there's only one very minor ingredient. It's called cigar glue. It's basically a vegetable paste that holds the whole thing together at the cap. A cap of a cigar has got a little piece of leaf draped over it and sort of adhered to the top of the cigar. And this is the thing that when a cigar aficionado goes to begin a cigar experience, they're going to cut this off. You can see right here, I have used a V cutter to cut this cigar. There's a few ways to do it. There's the V cut, there's a flat cut, which is probably the most common, and then there's even a punch cutter, which is convenient because they're sort of built into a lot of lighters, gives you a cutter and lighter on the go. The thing to know about the cap, though, is that a lot of cigars these days come with a relatively deep cap. It's the only part of the cigar that doesn't sort of run sort of diagonally around the cigar, the rolled part, if you will. They roll the wrapper leaf on, but the cap is put on completely evenly around the top. Deeper caps these days allow for different types of cuts, like my deep V cut right here, to give a nice cut that doesn't allow the whole thing to unravel. And this is really the key for the cigar beginner. The cap of the cigar holds the thing together. If you cut too much of it off, the cigar will come completely undone and the experience will end before it even begins. Now, right next to the cap of the cigar, sort of this curved part that moves down to where the cigar straightens out, this is called the shoulder. Just beneath the cap, the cigar gives you a little bit of a rounded part called the shoulder. This is something people talk about just to reference maybe if a cigar falls and cracks and they say, oh, it cracked right on the shoulder, just underneath the cap. It's a term you don't hear a whole tremendous amount, but it really refers to this rounded bit before you get into the main bit of the cigar, which is often called the body. The body of a cigar which sometimes is very unfortunately called the shaft. Extends from the shoulder all the way down to what we'll talk about in a minute. That's the foot of the cigar. A cigar is sort of like a weird human being. You couldn't hold it up and say, "Show me where the doctor touched you, son." It's got simple parts to it, but it's a simple thing. The body of the cigar constitutes the actual experience of it. If you hear cigar reviewers like myself talk about the first, second, and final third, that is the filler, the binder, the wrapper, everything that runs through the body of the cigar. It's really where the experience is had, where the flavor notes are, where everything develops, and where the burn happens all the way through. And there are different types of bodies out there, but those terms I'm going to save for another video. Now, if you've been walking around calling this bit the shaft, you probably wouldn't be surprised to find out that a cigar has these things called veins. And veins really are the part of just about any leaf that are visible on this exterior leaf of the cigar. Veins are networked a little differently from cigar to cigar out there. Different types of wrapper leaves have sort of different networks of veins depending on how light or dark or thick or thin or what seed or what varietal of leaf we're talking about. There's different networks of these veins. You can talk about these, and cigar reviewers will talk about these. Hell, I've even done it. But the contribution of veins to the overall experience of a cigar is like basically nothing. It doesn't really add a whole lot to the cigar. If a cigar has an unbelievably complex network of veins, it doesn't make it better than a cigar that does not have that. But you should know, if someone says, "Oh, it's really my cigar has really quite a veiny shaft," you might ask them what the hell they're talking about. And certainly as you move along the body of the cigar, you get to what is sort of a critical bit of the experience, and that is the foot. Now, for my feet fetish people out there, you'll be excited to know there are a few things you can learn about the foot of a cigar. The first one is, when you go to first light up a cigar, it's about kicking off the experience just right. Toasting the foot of a cigar with a lighter like this one. This is my Pistola lighter. You take this and then you just sort of touch the flame to the foot of the cigar. It blackens the foot. This is all the way around the foot to get a nice even burn started off. Also, touching everywhere where the edge of the wrapper touches the foot of the cigar will start the burn off straight. For the beginning cigar aficionado, this is the other important bit other than cutting the cigar right. Hell, even really experienced guys and gals will go and light a cigar and sort of half light the thing. And when you're talking to someone that does this, it can be frustrating. As an aficionado, for me, it's like talking to someone with a booger hanging out of their nose. You can't not say something about it or it's awkward the whole time. And so plenty of times I've looked at people who are just getting into cigars or have been doing this for a long time and said, "Hey, but stop talking. You're only half lit on that cigar. You should finish the whole thing. Get it going." And I don't tell them that for them. I'm really telling them that for me because I can't really go on. But then beyond that, there's a few different ways that you can experience the foot of a cigar. The most common way is like your traditional foot. It's where you look at the end of the cigar and you see all the intricate folds of the interior leaf of the cigar sort of bunched up and wadded up in there. And it's sort of a beautiful network and pattern that almost becomes the fingerprint of the cigar because no two cigars are the same. But that's not the only type of foot that goes into a cigar. There's a couple other ways cigar makers have played with this to do this, and it has to do with the flavor experience. You see, in some cases, cigar makers will roll a blend that has what's called a closed foot on it. And that means that the exterior leaf here wraps all the way around the bottom of the foot. So if you look at the foot, you no longer see these intricate web of leaves from the interior. Instead, what you're seeing is the wrapper leaf closing and covered around the foot. The most important thing to know about this is that it's going to feel like it has a really tight draw, even after it's been cut before it's lit up. If a cigar has a closed foot, then it's not time to toast the foot of the cigar. Most aficionados will put the cigar up to their mouth, put the lighter up, and start puffing immediately as they start sort of toasting or lighting the cigar. As soon as the flame burns through that exterior wrapper leaf, the draw opens up, but what it contributes to the experience is wrapper flavor right from light up, which is, for a lot of cigar aficionados, quite a high value. And even then, some cigar makers flip this whole idea on its head by doing the covered foot thing backwards. This is called a shaggy foot cigar. You'll see this from time to time as you walk around the cigar humidor, and that is a cigar whose exterior leaf doesn't start for a half to 3/4 an inch up the blend. If you look at a shaggy foot cigar, it looks broken. When you first, you set your eyes on it, you're like, what's wrong with that thing? In actuality, all it is this exterior wrapper leaf only extending down to about the last half inch of the cigar. All that's underneath is all the interior stuff, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But what this does for an aficionado is it means that upon light up, they taste the contribution of these interior leaves to the flavor profile. And as they get about a half an inch or an inch into the cigar where the wrapper leaf starts, suddenly there's a transition. The flavor changes, and this exterior leaf gives so much of a contribution to the flavor that it totally turns things over and takes them to a whole new world. And that's the basic anatomy of the outside of a cigar from end to end here. The only other thing to know is that most cigars have this thing that's either called a band or a ring. It's the thing that gives the cigar its character, because at the end of the day, what cigar makers do is the same thing. They roll round brown. That's it. It's just leaf rolled up together, and if they didn't put a band or a ring on a cigar, well, hell, you wouldn't be able to tell any of them apart from each other. And so for a lot of cigar makers, this ring, the name on the cigar, the look and the image of it, really is the thing that characterizes the cigar and lets the person who's looking at it tell it apart from everything else that's out there. This is one thing cigar makers fight vehemently to defend: the honor of the name of their cigars. And all of this really accounts for the outside of the cigar. The cap, the shoulder, the body, the foot, the band. It's all the stuff a person can see when they first look at the thing. It'd be like if you walked down the street and looked at a person, you'd see arms and legs and torso and head, probably, hopefully, my gosh. But now we need to take a look at the inside, the guts of the thing. So we're going to start from the outside and work our way into the middle, because this is where cigar makers practice their art. Let's start off with the exterior leaf. I've already called it the wrapper leaf. This leaf is profoundly important to the entire cigar world. Not only does a cigar's wrapper leaf give the cigar a character of its flavor, a majority of the flavor that the cigar has comes from the wrapper leaf on the outside in most cigars, but it's also how we as an industry characterize and categorize premium cigars out there. We call them according to the wrapper leaf that's on them. So as a great example, La Fermentada here has a Habano wrapper leaf on it, but there are lots of other types. Many milder cigars have a leaf called a Connecticut Shade. It's a lighter colored wrapper leaf with sort of this coffee with cream in it type color. And then there are darker ones, Maduro wrapper leaves, your Connecticut broadleaf and Mexican San Andreas leaves. But this is literally just a reference to the one leaf that wraps around the outside. It gives the cigar the character of its flavor. It helps us categorize cigars, and it's also a colossally huge part of the presentation of cigars. Different wrapper leaves have got different feels and textures. Some of them are quite oily, while others are a little drier and chalky. Some wrapper leaves are incredibly smooth, while other wrapper leaves can be toothy and have little bumps all over them. But one thing for sure, a wrapper leaf should be relatively evenly laid over the cigar and should not have a bunch of miscolorations or imperfections on it. It's so important that when premium cigar farmers go to grow this leaf in the field, their goal is to grow as much wrapper grade leaf as they can. They're working every inch of the crop to try to make every leaf a wrapper grade leaf, because it's the most valuable leaf on the cigar. Now, just underneath that is what we call the binder. Now, the binder is the one that's responsible for holding together the innards, which I'll tell you about the filler leaves in just a second. But the binder leaf is important to the blend, not just for the construction of the thing. You see, when a roller takes the filler leaves that go into a blend and puts them together, they roll them into a binder before they often press them into the perfectly cylindrical shape that most cigars come in. So a binder leaf is an important part of the blend for construction and it adds to the flavor. Oftentimes you'll see a cigar has a description that says that the wrapper is maybe a Habano, and the binder leaf might be something a little different, like a Criollo seed or a Sumatra seed or something like that. Cigar blenders know they have to pick a binder leaf that has got a similar combustion rate to the wrapper and fillers so that it all burns evenly, and that adds something interesting or something complementary to the flavor profile. But one thing's for sure, sort of the main bit of that binder leaf is that construction because of what lies within. That's the final bit, and that's the filler leaves. Filler leaves, they constitute most of the cigar. The wrapper leaf is one leaf on the outside. The binder, sometimes one or two leaves. A few blenders out there use two binder leaves when they make a cigar. Everything else on the inside is filler leaves. And this is really one big thing that sets premium cigars apart from all other types of cigars. Premium handmade cigars use long filler leaves, whole halves of leaves that are hand rolled into a cigar. A cigar maker will take these halves of leaves and sometimes they'll roll them up into little tobacco straws, or they fold them up and they put them into their hand to create what's called a bunch. This is just simply holding a bunch of leaves together in the hand to create the interior blend or the filler of a cigar. Once they've done this and sort of ripped it and twisted it and put it together to measure it to size, that's when they roll it into a binder leaf. But it's the actual recipe of these leaves in the filler that create a large part of what the blend is. Sometimes they'll use seco or ligero or viso leaves to accomplish a particular type of blend. Another way to do it is to take these same different varietals and use leaves from different countries. This is one way that we create such a huge and colossal variety to the number of different premium cigars that are out there. It was one thing that when I first got into this, I wondered all the time, how in the world did they make so many different blends if a cigar is made out of just leaf? The answer to that is that a tobacco plant does have these different leaves on it. Every single plant that grows in every single field is going to have what's called velado, seco, viso, ligero, and beyond that, you can take these plants from different growing regions of different countries, and all of the different soils of those countries create different characteristics that allow for a basically limitless number of different blends that go into a premium cigar. And in that way, you end up with one cigar with wrapper, binder, and filler, each one presenting its own very unique, very complex look at a premium cigar profile. Now that's a whole lot of terms to know and learn, and you can always come back to this video and find out more, but I really do want to know, what are the other interesting cigar terms that have sort of like tripped you up or you're still a little curious about? Put those down in the comments below because I want to get to as many of them as I can as I continue this series. The world of cigars is exciting because it's as deep as it is wide. It means you can learn a tremendous amount about something that is, at the end of the day, also very, very simple. And for that reason, it makes it a lot of fun. And when you find yourself in the midst of a community like the Cigars Daily Nation, it completes the experience. And so thank you for being here and for subscribing and watching the videos on this channel. Please do check this video out on the community on Cigars Daily Plus and on Rumble. Thanks again for watching. This is Tim signing off for Cigars Daily, and I will see you in the comments.